We know Harry Lorayne for a lot of things, and while his work will mean different things to different people, there are some consistent themes I think make his work stand out among his peers. And we'll dive into those themes later in this episode. Even though Harry was far from a perfect person, I think it's important to reflect on the things that he gave us as a magic community, how it influenced me as an artist and performer, and how studying his work can help you with your magic. I mentioned knowing him for a lot of things, and that's because he's written a ton of books. He is best known in the Muggle world probably for his amazing memory system, having appeared on The Tonight Show many times to demonstrate this remarkable and learnable ability. But equally important for us as magicians, Harry was well known as one of the top magic authors, gaining notoriety with his landmark book Close-Up Card Magic, published in 1962. Of course, things didn't stop there, and he continued to publish book after book after book filled with delicious magic secrets. However, this episode isn't about close-up card magic or any one book for that matter. Instead, I want to overview his whole body of work and talk about some of the key facets of his writing that I think we can all benefit from. But before we dive into those key characteristics of a Harry Lorayne book, let's go back to how I was introduced to Harry's work. I was just getting back into magic after a fairly lengthy hiatus for college, marriage, and starting my career. I'd always performed card magic, but actually I didn't know the name Harry Lorayne. I had started to build up a modest library of different books, and when I came across his name, it was always with a lot of respect for the work that he had published. By the way, this was around the same time that Harry was republishing his previous works in the classic collections. Additions, revisions, upgrading, and updating of his magical instruction manuals from the 1960s all the way through the end of the 1970s. I ordered the Classic Collection Volume 1, and I'll never forget when that book arrived. In fact, I had it shipped to my office because I didn't want to have to wait until I got home that day to open it up and explore some of its treasures. So as soon as it arrived at work, I eagerly tore open the packaging, opened the book, and I had to know how Impromptu Out of This World was done, among other effects. I was blown away, and this was the start of a beautiful relationship with Harry's magic and books. I bought, learned, and performed from the classic collections 1 through 4. Tricks like, as I mentioned, Impromptu Out of This World, Magician versus Gambler, The Lazy Man's Card Trick, Vernon's Aces, the 10-card poker deal, and so many others. Little did I know that learning these tricks would help me out down the road, and there were some consistent themes that made these books and tricks great. But I not only acquired the classic collection books, I also sought out the Best of Friends volumes 1 through 3, plus all 4 of the Apocalypse volumes. Certainly Harry published many other books, but these formed the core of the Harry Lorayne section of my library. There are 3 things I think that make Harry Lorayne magic books and tricks stand out and just make them special. The first is his accessible writing style. Somehow he nails that feeling that he's sitting right there with you, explaining this trick to you in a very conversational tone. Not only that, he was one of the first to give you some thoughts after he explains the method. These sections he calls afterthoughts. These are sometimes additional presentational possibilities or alternate sleights you can use, or just general advice on the performance of this trick. All in all, there's just such a synergy there with that conversational style, and it is consistent throughout all of his writing. He found that voice in Close-Up Card Magic in 1962, and he continued to share magic with us as if he was sitting right there all the way to his passing here in 2023. The second thing that I think makes his work stand out is just the huge canon of material that he's published. That he managed to corral some of the best material and creators to produce this massive list of books and tricks. And as I just alluded, some of the magic is his, but there was a lot that was contributed to him because people recognized that Harry Lorayne had an effective and different style of writing, and they wanted to put their magic out there with his voice as the conduit to take it to all of us. Harry himself focused a lot on card magic, but he also printed all kinds of magic using a variety of props from so many different creators. In fact, when you look through his bibliography, it is a veritable who's who of magicians from around the world. Harry gave broad exposure to names that we now recognize as household names in magic. people like David Riegel, Richard Vollmer, Derek Dingle, J.K. Hartman, and so many others. A lot of this varied material from these magic creators was published in the Apocalypse volumes as well as the Best of Friends books 1 through 3. And this magic was so good, much of it was republished later in those authors' standalone books or even released as a standalone trick. The final and possibly most important aspect of Harry Lorayne books and magic is that it's impromptu and easy to do. Very rarely does he ask you to deploy a gimmick or a stack. Most of the material can be performed with a straight or even incomplete deck of playing cards. And the fact that everything is easy to do is great on two fronts. One, obviously you'll be able to absorb and perform the material more quickly because it's easy to do, but it also makes it easier to remember. Early on, Harry shares his theory that if you're able to do a control or a force, a palm, and a double lift, among a few other sleights, you basically can do most of the material in his books. That means you can pick up these books and start learning tricks right away. And if you need to know a sleight, there's a pretty good chance that Harry's going to teach it to you within the text. He just couldn't help himself. So you might be asking, what's the point of all of this? There are a couple things. I think that when someone like Harry Lorayne passes, it's a great time to stop, reflect, and go back to your library. Too often we're caught up in trying to acquire the latest and the greatest, but when you look at a body of work like the one that Harry Lorayne has given us, there are so many great card tricks in there. Frankly, many lifetimes worth. And if we go back and revisit some of these classics, there's a good chance that we'll rediscover something that we used to love and performed, or maybe discover something completely new that we hadn't considered. In fact, let's help each other out. Post down below in the comments with your favorite Harry Lorayne tricks, and if you know the source, where it can be found so that those who are just getting to know the name Harry Lorayne can take a look at some of these tricks that have meant so much to all of us. And I would encourage you, if you already love card magic but maybe didn't know the name Harry Lorayne or don't have one of his books, borrow one from a friend or pick one up. Something like the Classic Collection just has a veritable treasure trove of tricks that you will love performing if you like impromptu, easy to do, and fooling card magic. If price is a problem, then I recommend you pick up the Magic book, which is still available on Amazon. I'll put a link down below for around $17 at the time of this video. There are plenty of great tricks in there, and don't be dissuaded by the fact that it's intended for beginners. I've actually performed magic from that book in shows, so this stuff plays and is great. So back to my story about Harry Lorayne and how his teaching impacted the way I think about and perform magic. Back in the day, I was performing a Gilbreth-based Out of This World. And if you don't know what that is, be sure to check out this video where I talk about tricks like this. But when you're performing a Gilbreth-type routine, you need someone to shuffle the cards together in a tabled riffle shuffle. When my participant went to go do that, cards sprayed everywhere. We tried to pick them up, and they were very apologetic for the way that went down. And on the inside, I was panicking. Needless to say, I wasn't going to be doing the version of that trick that I was planning to do. But even though I hadn't considered it before that exact moment of panic, I recalled the Impromptu Out of This World that was one of the first things I learned from a Harry Lorayne book. And I shifted to that version because it could be done from a shuffled deck in use, whether or not all the cards had been recovered. The performance was a resounding success, and I was reminded about some of these lessons that I just shared with you about Harry Lorayne and his magic. It's important to be able to perform something when someone hands you a deck and you have no idea the condition or the order of the deck. And when you've studied Harry Lorayne, you too will have that in your pocket for the exact time that you need it. After almost 60 years of sharing magic with us through the written word, Harry has penned his final lines. But that doesn't mean that his work is done. In fact, I know we'll be performing these tricks for decades to come. As Harry Lorayne's daughter-in-law Elizabeth shared recently, they found this Emily Dickinson quote in his desk: "Live your life to the fullest, and when you need me, just whisper my name in your heart. I'll be there." So please go back and revisit the Harry Lorayne section of your library soon and say a quiet word of thanks to Harry Lorayne for all the magic that he shared with us over the years. As always, my friends, I appreciate you watching. And until next time, keep reading.